welcome to another Monday edition of Second City Sports. Real live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, that's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
Follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
Make sure you follow that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps, whether it's the Apple iTunes Store, Amazon, Google Play. Make sure that app says Sports Zone Chicago. You want to know why? Because you can catch any of our 5 live shows, including this one, Second City Sports. You can watch and listen to us live. If you miss any of our shows, that's okay. You can go back and watch them and listen to them at your own leisure. Make sure you also follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, at Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you want to catch the audio version of this program, our podcast, Second City Sports, you can do so by subscribing to War on Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in those podcast platforms, then that search engine box, WARR on Anchor. And if you want to follow War Media on all social media platforms, we suggest you do so at War Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes, we are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. And if you want to make a comment on today's show during our 2-hour extravaganza, you can do so by going to Facebook, Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, or Sports Zone Chicago on Twitter. No, sorry, Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube, rather. Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to do something stupid or silly and we do not approve, Lakeena will give you probably the Minnesota Viking boot.
Bye-bye.
I love saying that. Coming up on today's show, as far as guests are concerned, we'll have Miss Tatum Everett from the Vikings Entertainment Network and Vikings.com. She's going to hop on with us at the top of next hour to preview tonight's Monday Night Football contest from the lakefront between the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears. We're going to get into the keys to the game, how the Minnesota Vikings are doing as far as the season's concerned, and we'll get to some more fun stuff with her. So that's coming up next hour right here on Second City Sports. Lakeena, to start off the show, we're going to talk about some basketball, in particular the Chicago Bulls. It's been a week since they officially played the game. They are now 18-10 on the season after defeating the Los Angeles Lakers at the UC last night, 115-110. DeMar DeRozan scored 38 points again against the Lakers. 19 of them came in the fourth quarter. Zach LaVine did not play because he's still in COVID-19 protocols, but Nikolai Vucevic stepped up with 19 points, 13 rebounds. Former Los Angeles Lakers players Lonzo Ball had 19. Alex Caruso, who stepped into the starting lineup in the place of the Zach LaVine, scored 17 points. The Bulls only had 13 points total coming off their bench, but it was the starters that carried the Bulls to their victory last night, Lakeena. I worried about how the Bulls will come out. They actually started off well. We all know that the NBA is, in particular, basketball is a game of runs. The Bulls started off hot. The Lakers came back. The Bulls had another run. The Lakers had another run. But it was the Bulls that hung in tough at the end to pull out the 5-point victory.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're sort of, caught off guard how the Bulls look. You thought that maybe they would look a little sluggish. They hadn't had a lot of practice. They just started practicing again on Friday. So you thought that maybe it would be about a quarter or two before they get their conditioning going, get it going. But they did pretty well. I mean, like you said, DeRozan was the leader in that group. 38 points in his first game back. Vooch had a double with 19 and 13 rebounds. Lonzo also had 19, and Alex Caruso had 17. So it was definitely a group effort by the starters. Some key missed stops late. I mean, Alfonso McKinney, he only scored 2 points, but he had a couple of key steals late in the game. So, and they actually signed him to another 10-day contract, so he'll be around for a little bit. But the fact that they swept the season series against the Lakers, you thought that maybe the Lakers are, were starting to kind of get it going, but then AD gets hurt. He's going to be out for about a month at least, and then some other things started happening. They started losing guys to COVID protocols. So, This is a nice win by the Bulls. I mean, I love DeMar's comments. He said that the only symptom he suffered when during the quarantine was bored. He said he was bored the whole time. So I don't, could take that for what it's worth. But and look, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how this team looks once everybody does come back. Once
Mhm,
Levine comes back, it'll still be a couple of days. I think AO should be back about the same time.
mhm.
Troy Brown Jr. as well. So guys, they'll be back. They should be back at full strength with exception of P. Will like maybe by the end of this week. So it's gonna kind of take a while for guys to kind of get things going. But it seems like this is happening all over the NBA where guys have had to kind of some guys have had to sit through, due to COVID. We'll talk about that in a second. But,
Yeah.
this is definitely one of those wins where if you're the Bulls, you'll take it. The fact that, like I said, I don't know how they've been able to do this, but, look, they got one coming up tonight at home. They got, Houston. I know they want to avenge that loss from a few weeks ago.
Mhm.
So I'm sure we'll see how much energy they have. But, this was a good team win for the Bulls considering the circumstances.
On the flip side for the Los Angeles Lakers, the King LeBron James tallied 31 points, including 11 of 21 from the field and grabbing 14 rebounds. Carmelo Anthony had 21 points off the bench, including 5 of 12 shooting from three-point range. Russell Westbrook, who missed an easy layup, well, I'll talk about that play in just a second. Russell Westbrook had 20 points in all, 9 of 19 shooting. Wayne Ellington stepped in and started the lineup for the Lakers. He had 6 points of 2 of 5 shooting from three-point range. Isaiah Thomas, no, not the old legend, but the current player Isaiah Thomas had 32 points in 32 minutes. He had 13 points, including 3
Hmm.
of 7 shooting from three-point range. Trevor Ariza made his season debut in 15 minutes of action. He had 3 points, and he just shot one three-pointer and made that one. Lakeena, I want to go back to the last minute of the game. Russell Westbrook, he drove to the basket. He thought he had an easy layup with the left hand, but Vucevic had his hand up. And Russell Westbrook, who had a technical foul earlier in the game, he looked at the referee and said, "Why can I get a call?" If you looked at the replay, Vucevic played perfect defense on Westbrook. Westbrook just left his shot up, the easy layup short at the basket, and the Bulls were able to roll on for there. I was interested to see how the Lakers would play DeRozan, especially in the fourth quarter. We talked about this before, Lakeena, when the Miami Heat was here in Chicago a few weeks ago playing against the Bulls. They played a box and one, and then they played a 2-3 zone against DeRozan during that fourth quarter. DeRozan, after hitting the first couple of shots, he was ineffective down the stretch. In Miami Heat won the first of 2 games against the Bulls this season. The Lakers tried that again last night, but it was obviously it was unsuccessful. Of course, we had to mention Frank Vogel is in health and safety protocols for the head coach of the Lakers. David Fizdale was the active head coach last night. Some people said it could be a preview, but we'll get into that in a minute. But the defense that was played on DeRozan last night, it was null and void. He went off, as I mentioned, for 19 points. That patent free throw line jumper, that elbow jumper, DeRozan still has it. It looks like he hasn't missed a week of action. It was just
Yep.
nice to see if you were a Bulls fan.
Yeah, I mean, he said he's still practicing the gym, in his, I guess his court in his house, wherever he could. So that way he kind of kept the rhythm going. So I think, look, this is a nice win for the Bulls. Like I said before, I mean, they're they're still shorthanded. They're still, you still got guys in protocols, and guys are just now coming back, like DeRozan and also Derrick Jones Jr., who I think is still a little banged up, with the hamstring because of the fact that they haven't been playing and practicing. So we'll see how they look. We'll see how they look. I know Kobe White only had 5 points, but
Mhm,
again, this is his first game back too. So look, it's gonna take guys a while. Yeah, as you can see, maybe DeRozan, he picked up where he left off.
mhm.
Vooch, is starting to kind of find his groove. We'll see how Kobe looks. It's probably gonna take him a couple of games. He hasn't played in like 3 weeks. So it's gonna be look, I think people just need to give them time. I mean, look, conditioning and everything, getting back into a routine. It's gonna take about a week or two before they can kind of really get into a rhythm again. So I think Bulls fans should just keep calm. You know, guys are and look, it's not just the Bulls. I mean, there are a lot of teams in the NBA we'll get to in a second that are going through this right now. So I think people just need to kind of show a little bit of patience and a little bit compassion for these guys.
You're listening to Second City Sports, the live Monday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena here with us. We talk Bulls in the NBA. Lakeena, before we move on to the rest of the league, because there are schedule changes coming up in the next few days. As I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, I was worried about how the Bulls were going to come out because they haven't played in a week. As I mentioned, they did pretty well for the situations that they're in right now. But I'm sure that the crowd was a lot. They were alive and well last night at the UC. Of course, the opponent they were playing, the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm sure they also helped as well. But I want to go back to. I'm sure you were on Bulls Twitter last night, Lakeena, and I had this thought after the game. Remember when the Bulls beat the Lakers back in November at Staples Center? LeBron James didn't play, and the entire Bulls team went off DeRozan, Levine, and Lonzo Ball. Last night, what happened was Zach LaVine didn't play, but Lonzo Ball had a good game, especially early. Caruso had a good game, and DeRozan did what he did, especially in that fourth quarter. I wonder what Bulls Twitter, some people on Bulls Twitter are saying now, just people around the league, probably more people around the league. Well, you had LeBron James play, but Anthony Davis didn't play. Well, if Anthony Davis was in there, the Bulls would have beaten them last night? Who cares? Things happen. The Bulls are a good team. I'm not
Yeah,
telling you they're going to win championship number 7 this year. I'm not going that far yet. We have to take it one game at a time. But my thought is that some people we'll see how this plays out with this situation with the Bulls. It looks like they're starting to come out of it with regards to health and safety protocols, getting their guys back. But my opinion is I don't think that the nation is giving the Bulls their respect. And I think when the Bulls keep winning, people are going to have no choice but to give them their props.
and I think they will. I think if you're the Bulls, I think you'll take the fact that you know what, no one's really talking about them, and that's fine because I think that I think they would rather be under the weight under the radar, and I think that that's fine with them. I mean, and look, I mean, look if they don't get recognition around the country, okay, whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
let the game do the talking. Demar's not going to say anything. I know Zach isn't going to say anything once he comes back. Fuge isn't either, and Alonzo isn't. So I'm not worried about how the perception is around the nation, how good this team is. Look, we know how good this team is.
Mm-hmm.
They're letting their game do the talking, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but yeah, it's fine. I mean, I'm not like get off my lawn, like oh you all should be talking about the Bulls. I'm fine with the Bulls being under the radar. I mean, I actually if you're Billy Donovan, I think you prefer it. So I think that's okay. So
Mm-hmm.
fine. Look, yeah, I don't want to talk about it. It's okay. You know what? We'll just let our game do the talking. Maybe you'll notice it, but maybe you won't. So it doesn't matter.
Speaking of the NBA, you brought it up, Lakina. The rest of the league are dealing with COVID-19 and protocols throughout the league, just like the other sports. We'll get to the NFL and the NHL later. But Kyrie Irving, we didn't talk get a chance to talk about this on Friday, but he put out an Instagram post bouncing the basketball and putting on his latest Kyrie Irving Nike shoes. At the time, I thought that he's just doing this for attention because as of right now he's sitting down due to with the New York City mandate for vaccines, and of course, Kyrie Irving is not vaccinated, so it's his right for not to play. Even though he's getting paid $18 million this year. The Nets had a game on Saturday against the Atlanta Magic, which they lost. But before the game was on Saturday, Kevin Durant was back playing, but was not back playing, but he was placed back on the COVID list of the health and safety protocols. And the reason why Kyrie Irving is on that list officially is because the Nets have run out of players. You saw the last couple of games they played; they barely squeaked out wins. P- um, they didn't have enough players, and on Saturday night they gave it the best effort, but you could tell that they didn't have any of their superstars there, and the lowly Orlando Magic took advantage.
Yeah, they did, and I think I know people are wondering, okay, did Kyrie test positive for COVID? We don't know yet. It could just be, it's just probably just procedural. The fact that he
Hmm.
has to be in health and safety protocols for a
Yeah.
couple of weeks, especially in this situation. But yeah, I mean, look, look, I know people have asked, should they maybe just pause for a couple of weeks? They're not going to do that. I mean, the Christmas is coming up. That's their biggest audience. I know. I
Hmm.
think there already has been a game that has been pushed back because of the health protocols and such. We'll see if
Mhm.
any of this changes. Brooklyn, Los Angeles. No, Brooklyn's been having issues, and I
Mhm.
know Atlanta. Trey Young tested positive apparently, so now he's in protocols. We know Giannis is protocols at Boston, Milwaukee games. So don't be surprised if some games do get switched, or some games do get postponed because of it. But yeah, I mean, look, this is going to be an issue for the next month or two. I mean, you're approaching cold and flu season. You get all this other stuff happening. Apparently, we still don't know about this Omicron variant that's been spreading fast and furious. So we just this is still a lot to be desired. We just don't know. So it's gonna look. I think people just should just buckle up and just make just be ready, because don't be surprised if more games are pushed back or postponed. Because remember that Bulls game was and Lakers game was supposed to have been in the afternoon yesterday,
Mhm.
but because of Lakers were having issues and the Bulls were still getting out of it, they had to push it back. So that's how it kind of started. But the fact that we still had a pretty thrilling game, even though both teams were shorthanded for various reasons and everything else. So what impressed you this weekend in the NBA?
For the games that were actually played, the Golden State Warriors defeated the Boston Celtics 111 to 107. Of course, the Warriors are wrapping up their East Coast road trip. I know they lost to Toronto this past Saturday. Of course, Steph's Draymond Green, Jordan Poole, who's in health and safety protocols. Most of their big guys sat out against Toronto, and I did watch the first part of that game, Lakeena, because we talked about it on Friday. The whole country of Canada, as far as sporting events are concerned, both for both not baseball, but hockey and
Hockey,
basketball,
basketball.
their attendance has been slashed to 50% until further notice due to this Omicron variant. I did look at that crowd at Toronto as they hosted the Golden State Warriors. I mentioned they blew out the Warriors, the Raptors did, but that crowd looked like a preseason game. And I
Hmm.
wanted to see what the mood was for the fans. It looks like the fans weren't bothered by it too much, at least the ones that were able to attend. They got loud, they got crazy, but it looked very eerie. But it didn't seem to bother the Raptors fans that were able to attend the game on Saturday.
Yeah, yeah, they gotta say that yes, some of the guys, with the exception of Steph, they were missing a lot of their guys. The Warriors were, but I think Toronto looked really good. I know they've had their various issues with COVID and guys and safety protocols. Their own
Yeah.
GM Messiah Jury is
Mhm.
also he's been his safety protocols for a while, but it was a nice performance by them. A good bench performance. They had about like guys had like almost 40 points off the bench.
Mhm.
They outscored the Warriors like 40, like 20 or something like that. So you got to give, their props, the Raptors their props for the performance. Yes, the Warriors were shorthanded, but still, I mean,
Mhm.
but that's still a pretty good Raptors team. So I think, let's give them their props for this win against the against the against the Warriors. Now, for me, probably, I guess one of the things that really impressed me, because it's gonna get very interesting. I think you gotta say Phoenix. I know I know they're they got a big one against the Lakers tomorrow night. That's a TNT game. We'll get to the schedule in a
Mhm.
second, but they looked really good too. I think they had a game that was postponed because their opponent had we're going through their own health and safety issues. So
Mhm.
that game, their game they had was postponed. So they did what's supposed to do to Charlotte. They beat them by 31, and
Mhm.
but it was actually also Devin Booker's first game back. He had 16 points. So it's like again, like I said, it's going to take him a little while to kind of get into a rhythm. So yeah, but JaVale McGee had 19 off the bench. He's proven to be kind of like that veteran presence that they needed, the Suns needed, that they were missing last year. So, but the Suns look really good, and they're right up there in the West right now.
Also, to the Memphis Grizzlies, that winning streak stopped last night, losing to the Portland Trail Blazers 105 to 100. But the Grizzlies last Friday they beat the Sacramento Kings by 20. But the Memphis Grizzlies they're doing this without John Morant, as I mentioned, Kyle Anderson, Dylan Brooks, Jaren Jackson Jr. Those guys they know how to play and they played together. And you have to give the head coach credit on that. And the Memphis Grizzlies right in the middle of the pack. Between 4 and 5 in the West right now. Will it stay that way, especially when John Morant comes back? We shall see. But right now, you have to give him their props.
Yeah, they're 10-2 since Ja's been
Hmm.
hurt. So I think he's still going to be out another like couple more weeks, with that knee injury. So it's going to be very interesting to see, how Taylor Jenkins, who, that's the name of the coach for those folks who
Yeah.
don't know. I'm sure he's going to get a lot of consideration for coach of the year after everything that's been going on there. But when Ja comes back, how will the team look? Their emphasis is more on defense. So once Ja comes back, they're more of an offensive team. So it's going to get very
Mhm.
interesting on how they kind of get job back into the rotation here. That's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting there, nonetheless.
Also, too, let's give props to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So they went 2-0
Yeah.
for the weekend. They beat the Lakers on Friday. That was the second game of that ESPN doubleheader. Of course,
Hmm.
Anthony Davis injured his knee. He's going to be out for a month, as you mentioned. But they beat the Dallas Mavericks last night, 111-105. Lakeena,
Hmm.
Jason Kidd. I'm not going to say he's not the guy for the job. I know this is his. It's not his first rodeo, but this is his first year with the Mavericks as a coach. I'm not saying fire him yet, but when is the tide going to turn?
Yeah, but you gotta think though, Karl Anthony Towns has looked really good for the Timberwolves. And let's remember,
He's
and
an all-star this year. I tell you that
yeah.
right now.
Yeah, he said they're at 500 right now as we record this. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say that they may be right there, to compete for one of the play-ins in the West. They're playing
Mhm.
for new ownership now, so these guys are basically playing for their jobs. So,
Yeah.
but look, as for the Mavs, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would say maybe give it another couple of games if by this time next month and they're still struggling. I mean, they're also at 500 too. The Mavs are. If they're
Mhm.
still struggling, then you might say, you know what, maybe Kid isn't the right fit for this. So we'll just have to wait and see.
You're listening to Second City Sports on the Monday. We are live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena are here with you. Lakeena, since we have a couple minutes left in this first block, let's give our fans a preview of tonight's schedule for the next couple of nights. As you mentioned, some games were postponed over the weekend. We have one postponement so far tonight, and that's the Magic at the Raptors. That game will be made up in a later date. But we still have the Philadelphia 76ers traveling to Boston to take on the Celtics tonight at 6:30. That's the NBA TV contest. Of course, you have the
Hmm.
Houston Rockets playing the Bulls at 7 o'clock, locally on NBC Sports Chicago, nationally on League Pass.
Hmm.
The Oklahoma City Thunder, they got a big win thanks to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He
Yeah.
had redemption from last week against New Orleans Pelicans. He hit the game-winning shot last Saturday against the Clippers at home. The Oklahoma City Thunder will travel to Memphis to take on the Grizzlies tonight at 7 o'clock. You have the Charlotte Hornets continue on their West Coast road trip. They'll play the Utah Jazz at 8 o'clock. Utah, they lost a heartbreaker to Washington last
Yeah.
Saturday night. I watched some of that. The Sacramento Kings will play the Golden State Warriors tonight at 9 o'clock. And then you wrapping up tonight's schedule, we'll have the San Antonio Spurs at the Los Angeles Clippers.
Clippers hoping to bounce back from that loss to OKC. I don't think
Hmm.
they're going to be in a very good mood now. As for tomorrow's games, you got first of the TNT doubleheader. You got Miami hosting Indiana. Miami's doing their best to stay afloat with all their injury issues and such. So we'll see how they look against Indiana. That's the first game of that doubleheader.
That
New York.
replaces Wizards and Nets
Yes,
because
that
that
was
game's
supposed to
been
be.
postponed.
Yeah, that's supposed to be Wizards net. So that game was pushed. Was postponed. New York versus host Detroit. We'll see how Detroit's looking very good. I think they've won like 3 in a row, I think, or something like that. So I know they won yesterday.
Yeah.
Saw a couple of people I know went to that game against Miami. So you got to think Miami's probably in a very good mood for that game. But we'll see if Detroit can kind of keep it up against the Knicks. Portland and New Orleans. New Orleans have had some various issues. I know Portland's won a couple in a row. Damian Lillard's kind of getting back to being Dame after being out for about a week. So we'll see how they look. That should be a fun one. Minnesota and Dallas. No, this. I'm sure Dallas is going to want their revenge. So we'll see how that looks.
Yeah.
The home and home. So we'll see. You'll see. And also, too, I mentioned earlier the Phoenix Lakers game. That's the second part of that TNT doubleheader. LeBron versus CP3 in their respective supporting cast. So we'll see how the Lakers look and see if they can continue their role.
Yeah, remember last month, the Phoenix Suns went into Staples and gave the Lakers a beat down. Of course, the Lakers were going through their injury issues at the time. So let's see if the Lakers have a better effort tomorrow night as they face the Phoenix Suns because they're on a 2-game losing streak. Lakeena, we had to take a 2-2 break. When we come back on Second City Sports, right here on Sports Zone Chicago, we'll review the week 15 action from the National Football League. There's the games that took place yesterday and Saturday, and we'll give you our Vikings Bears preview coming up next hour. We're Tatum Everett from Vikings Entertainment Network, and a whole lot more. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NFL Thursday night, the Chiefs beat the Chargers 34-28 in overtime. Kansas City 10-4 with the win. The Chargers dropped to 10-6. 3 touchdown passes for Patrick Mahomes in the win. 31-47 passing, 410 yards. Travis Kelce with 2 touchdown grabs. Justin Herbert had a pair of touchdown passes for the Chargers. 22 of 38 passing, 236 yards. He was picked off once. Mahomes connected with Kelce for a 34-yard touchdown pass on the first possession of overtime to win it, putting some separation between the division-leading Chiefs and the Chargers in the AFC West. Scary moment in the first quarter when Chargers tight end Donald Parham Jr. was knocked unconscious. He was stretchered off, but is reportedly in stable condition. Kansas City's winning streak at 7. The Chargers had a 2-game win streak snapped. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Shop 40 to 70% off almost everything at Gap Factory and GapFactory.com. This week only. Plus, new deals on outerwear and sweats. Save through December 15th at Gap Factory and GapFactory.com.
Do you think it's okay to drive stoned? The truth is your reaction times slow way down when you're high. You not only put yourself in danger, but everyone around you. Stop kidding yourself. If you've been using marijuana in any form, do not get behind the wheel. If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI. Paid for by NHTSA.
Fever is a potential sign of COVID or the flu, and the Exergen temporal scanner thermometer has been proven accurate with more than 100 clinical studies. Be vigilant and seek medical advice at the first sign of fever. Be accurate with Exergen. Exergen temporal scanners, available at Walmart and other fine retailers. Learn more at Exergen.com. That's EXERGEN.com. Exergen is changing the way the world takes temperature.
Welcome back to Second City Sports live on a Monday. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena are here with you. Lakeena, let's get into our football discussion of the program as we will review the games that took place yesterday for Week 15 in the National Football League. We also had a Saturday game as well. Of course, we'll talk about the issues dealing with health and safety protocols in the National Football League as well. But first, we had to tell you, if you have a question or comment for us, since we have 90 minutes left in the show, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Place your questions or comments in the comments section. We will get them up on the screen for you. Let's show some love to Money Mountain to our guy Vernon, if we can get it up. We get it up. He says, "Are you ready?" Yeah, Vernon Fairley. Shout out to Vernon, money earning Mount Vernon. Are you ready for a Bears elimination in the hashtag Fire Nagy chance to get louder? That's interesting because the Bears are on national television again. We'll mention this comment, then we'll move on to the rest of the league. Will it get louder tonight if they get embarrassed, Lakeena? Do you think that will make a difference? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I'm kind of at that point where, they really think, I don't think there's going to be like that many people at the game anyway. So, I'm not too worried about that. And as for, the Fire Nagy chance, I think they're getting kind of tired and old at this point. I'm sure he'll probably get let go. We have to wait a few more weeks. Now, if the Bears somehow, embarrass themselves, I don't think they will, despite, pretty much just about everybody. I know Jalen Johnson, became the latest, to go into health and safety protocol, so he's not going to be able to play tonight. Sean Desai, who's the DC, will be able to coach tonight. But Matt Nagy's going to have his Denny's menu of plays, offensive plays. So get ready for jet sweeps, get ready for reverses and everything else. So that's going to be very interesting as well. So I don't think it's going to matter. The Fire Nagy chance. I'm sure they've heard it. I'm sure the McCaskies have heard it. So I'm not too worried about that. Let's get before we talk about the bad stuff, let's talk about the good stuff that went on in National Football League over the weekend. I know there are going to be some games. We'll talk about those games in a second. But for me, probably the I'll start with the very impressive win by the Indianapolis Colts on Saturday night. This is the lone game, the Saturday game. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. Jonathan Taylor, once again, if you have on your fantasy team in your playoffs, you're off to a pretty good start. 170 yards and a touchdown rushing touchdown. And but it was actually the defense for the Colts that kind of sealed the deal for them. They had a block punt that they got into a touchdown. Then there was then they intercepted Mac Jones a couple of times. Mac Jones actually looked like a rookie. So, now Colts are 8-6. They're kind of right there in the middle for one of those wild card spots in the AFC. They know what they have to do. And look, I mean, the AFCs, I should say, could come down to that last game of the season between the Patriots and the Bills. We'll see where both teams are by then, but there's a very impressive performance by the Colts.
Yes, as you mentioned, Lakeena, you talked about this last year as well. The Colts defense was a top 5 defense in the National Football League. They had their issues this season, but they stepped up to the plate on Saturday night. I did watch some of that game, and it helps out. It helps your defense has helped out a lot when you have a strong running game. Carson Wentz only threw about 5 passes in that entire game. We joke about with our buddy Christina, who joins us on Fridays for her picks, that Carson Wentz is injured and he has 2 bad ankles, which is true. But Colts head coach Frank Wright took the page out of Bill Belichick's playbook. I'm going to throw 5 times, so we're going to run this ball down your throat, and you're going to love it. And that's exactly what happened.
And working for them, Taylor has now that's his 11th straight game with a rushing touchdown. That's the longest streak since LaDainian Tomlinson back in the 04 and 05. He did for 18 straight. We'll see, if Mr. Taylor can keep it up there. Another game. Speaking of, you're staying in the AFC East. You got the Bills. The Bills with a nice win against the Panthers. Although the Panthers did make it interesting for a little bit, but it was just too much for the Bills. I mean, too much for the Panthers to overcome. Josh Allen had 3 touchdown passes. Devin Singletary had 86 rushing yards and a touchdown. Oh, good. He actually led the team in rushing. Yay! But the defense had Cam Newton about 4 times that they wanted to redeem themselves after what happened the last couple of games. They had an interception. They intercepted Newton as well. So, but overall, probably the best performance that the Bills have had in the last few weeks.
Yeah, what I've been saying all season long, Lakeena, if quarterback Josh Allen for Buffalo is your leading rusher, you're going to have a problem. Devin Singletary looked great on that touchdown run yesterday. I did watch some of this game live on my computer screen. So the Buffalo Bills looked good. The defense held fort. And this is a formula for success for Buffalo, as we mentioned last Friday on the show. After losing a heartbreaker to Tampa Bay last week, Buffalo needed this game because I believe they play the Patriots next week. And you still have a tough schedule to end the season. So this is a huge win for Buffalo. Now on the flip side for Carolina, they didn't have a kicker in their backup quarterback, PJ Walker. Did you see his pregame tape trying to kick the ball? Not good.
Yeah,
he looked worse than I do.
Yeah, bless his heart. Some people said it, and you can probably tell that he wasn't, kicking. Thankfully, that didn't end up being the case. It didn't come down to a field goal, thank goodness. So, but yeah, it was just weird how all that transpired before the game. But but I think Carolina did what they could, but it just wasn't enough for them. Now, one team that's kind of getting hot at the right time, Miami, the Dolphins, they're at 500, holding off the New York Jets. Well, actually turned out to be a pretty entertaining game. I saw this game via this little laptop here. Tua had a couple of interceptions, but he threw for 2 touchdowns. Duke Johnson, who just joined the team, or about this time last week, had 107 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Needless to say, they've signed him for the rest of the season. Big shocker. So, and look, Miami's it's enough for Miami to perhaps maybe make a playoff push. They've considering their schedule. I mean, they got at the Saints, at the Titans, at the Patriots. So they got a pretty tough schedule to try to get to like 10 wins, so they can try to at least make a case for the playoffs. But they look pretty good.
Yeah, their star wide receiver Jalen Waddle out of Alabama is in health and safety protocol. Devontae Parker stepped up yesterday with a huge touchdown catch. But did you check out my man Christian Wilkins?
Yes.
What's he doing out there doing the best belly flop?
He did that when he was at Clemson. So yeah, he couldn't really do too much of that.
I saw that this morning on Sports Center. He did that after they won the national championship. He's a member of the Clemson Tigers, and then he busted out some moves yesterday.
Yeah, his second pick six. So that was a pretty
Yeah.
cool moment for him. His
And they
career.
did the Lambo leap, and one of the fans said, we gotta help this big man up.
Yeah, I was say, yeah,
I
they
don't
were
want
actually
him
being nice.
crushing me.
Yeah, I was say, yeah, I think they were actually were nice to him for that. So that was actually
Yeah.
pretty, Packers fans don't get a bad rap, but they're actually pretty classy, a classic group. Most of them are. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, we'll see how the Dolphins are. Like I said, they got a tough schedule to finish up the season, so we'll see if they can try to make a playoff push. One of the shockers here is Detroit upsetting Arizona 30-12. This is this is not the time to have your worst game of the season. Now, I will say this, so for all you Arizona fans that were kind of freaking out, they lost. Okay, this is actually the third time since 1970, the merger, that a team with the NFL's worst record be a team with one of the best records, including tied records. 8 minimum games. The previous two teams were the 95 Cowboys and the 04 Patriots. Both those teams ended up winning the Super Bowl. So you can take that for what it's worth, as a little bit of encouragement, Arizona. But yeah, they looked really bad yesterday. Now, could it be that maybe the short week, them traveling cross country? Who knows? But it just not a good time to have your worst game of the season, Arizona.
Shout out to the old brother crew, as we call them here on Second City Sports for Fox. Gus Johnson and Keith Lee. I'm sure they expected a better game, but they didn't get that. But the Detroit Lions did what they had to do. I watched the majority of this game on my computer screen, and Dan Campbell, the head coach of the Lions, he put his foot to the pedal and he caught the Arizona Cardinals off guard. The Cardinals actually had a decent drive coming out of halftime. It only resulted into 3 points, but you could tell there was no energy there.
Yeah.
And Keith Lee mentioned that on the broadcast yesterday. Jared Goff had 3 touchdown passes and all. Amon St. Brown, I'm not saying he's the number one wide receiver, but that young man could play along with Corey Raymond as well. He had a touchdown catch yesterday. So the Lions did what they had to do. Reynolds had 26 carries for 100. Craig Reynolds rather had 26 carries for 112 yards for the Lions. Kyler Murray did not have a good day at the office yesterday. He had an interception along with a touchdown pass off of 257 yards passing. Christian Kirk had 9 catches and 94 yards in the only touchdown for the Arizona Cardinals. This is the first loss on the road for the Cardinals this season, Lakeena. I think you could kiss that number 1 seed goodbye for the Cardinals. I think that was consensus for most experts a couple of weeks ago. Now your schedule gets tougher. I think they play the 49ers one more time. No, they're done with the 49ers.
No,
they play the Seahawks again. They're done with the Rams.
They play the Colts.
They play the Colts on Saturday, and then they got the Dallas after that.
Saturday night game. So then Dallas, and they finished up with Seattle. So we'll see where they are seeding wise by then. But they got to win
at least 2 out of those 3 games, Lakeena, at least.
Yeah, I think they have to. They're going to have to. They want to be if they'll at least host a playoff game. Never mind the playoffs itself. Now we don't have to spend too much time on this, but I think this is another thing that kind of caught folks off guard. Houston just hammering the Jacksonville. I mean, look, we all thought that maybe with Urban Meyer being gone, that Jacksonville would actually look pretty good. No, not so much. I mean, Davis Mills had 2 touchdown passes. It was really their defense that kind of propelled them in that game. So, I mean, I don't, I really don't know what else to say about this game. But I mean, we thought that maybe they would be a little more, we see a little bit more of Jacksonville, but that wasn't the case.
It was nice to see James Robinson back in the end zone. I know he was the punching bag to now ex-head coach Urban Meyer. James Robinson had 18 carries for 75 yards in that first quarter touchdown. Brandon Cooks was the man for Houston with 7 catches for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence had 210 yards passing. Lakeena, Jacksonville did hang around through the majority of that game. They actually came out with more energy in that first drive and definitely in that first half, but Houston jumped on them too early, and that was it.
Yeah, that was basically the end for them. It was really their defense. Like I said, it was really their defense that propelled them, and it was just one of those things where you kind of okay, maybe wasn't just the coach for Jacksonville, but that's another story for another time. Dallas did what they're supposed to against the Giants. 21-6. We don't have to spend too much time on it. I mean, I know. Dak didn't make any mistakes, really any huge mistakes, and they did what they had to do, to kind of keep up, and still being the leader of the pack in the NFC East.
Yeah, I looked at some of the highlights of this game. I know that the game was broadcast to the majority of the nation. I know Chicago's Bulls TV announcer Adam and me called that game with Mark Schlereth yesterday. It looked like to me that Dallas was just going through the motions. I thought they were going to put the hammer down on the Giants, but it just looked like to me Dallas was going through the motions. Like you said, they did what they had to do. Dak didn't really make any mistakes, unlike last week, which got Washington back in the game with that pick six. But Dallas did what they had to do to win the game. So they inch closer to clinching that NFC East title.
Yeah, Trevon Diggs did have another interception, another time for most by any player in the last 40 seasons. The last player was Everson Walls. You go all the way back to 1981 for that. He's one off from that record. Walls's record is 81.
Mhm.
So we'll see if he can. He still got a couple of games to do it. So we'll see what happens there. Now, probably one of the games of the day was Pittsburgh holding off the Titans 19-13. Big Ben. Didn't have to do too much. Didn't make any big mistakes. He was sacked 3 times, but the Steelers sacked Tannehill 4, and it was really their defense. Derek Watt, I think, had another sack. I think he had like a sack and a half. So I think he's up there. It's right up there for the most by a Steeler in a single season. So he now
Mhm.
league is with 17 sacks. So that's a new Steeler single season record. That record brings 66 and a half sacks now, passing Derek Thomas for the third most in the players' first 5 seasons. So you could probably say he should get consideration for MVP. He probably won't, but just a grind out performance by Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you had to give the Steelers defense credit. Casey Hayward and JT Watt. Those are the two big studs for this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. They did what they had to do yesterday to shut down the Tennessee Titans. But for me, as I talked about on this show all year, Lakeena, the Tennessee Titans offense is just so schizophrenic. Of course, Ryan Tannehill can have a couple of bust out performances, but when you need him to do it the most, he's not there. I know Tennessee is really going through it with their own injury issues right now. Julio Jones has been a big disappointment. I know part of the year he's been hurt, but the Tennessee's offense is schizophrenic. They just got to find some consistency there. I know Dante Foreman had 22 carries for 108 yards yesterday, but it just seemed to me that you waiting for something to happen with the Titans offense. It just doesn't come at the right time.
Yeah, and I think that's the unfortunate part. I know, of course, Derrick Henry's hurt.
Mhm.
Julio's been hurt. Like I said, he's been a big, I don't want to say bust, but it has been disappointing. Also, too, AJ Brown's still hurt too. So, just a lot of injury issues. So we'll see if they can kind of keep it up. They're leading the AFC South right now, but the Colts are right there nipping at their heels, and I believe they do play the Colts again, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have their schedule in front of me. I guess I don't know. No, they don't anymore. I guess they split their series, but they had the 49ers, the Dolphins, and the Texans to finish up their season. So they could win a couple and perhaps seal that division. But again, it's going to be tough. But they can't play like that, offensively and, expect to win a division. They just can't do it. Now, going to the 3:00 games, the Bengals, they didn't let us down this time. They beat the Denver 15-10. I mean, I think, a scary injury for Teddy Bridgewater. He hit his head in the turf. He will, all signs are clear, though. He was released earlier, so that's good news there. Javonte Williams had 72 rushing yards. Again, they didn't. The Bengals didn't have to do too much, but that was probably an elimination game for the playoffs. I would say for them, but it's just one of those things where you kind of like the Broncos had their chances. They had a couple of chances, I think, near Bengals territory. They just couldn't capitalize.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, Lakeena. I watched some of that game yesterday via this computer screen, and that's the same thoughts that came that were trying to come out right out of my head. Denver, even after Teddy Bridgewater's injury, thank goodness he's okay. But Drew Lock couldn't do anything. They couldn't get the ball downfield. They actually had a turnover in that fourth quarter.
Yep.
They were going to take the lead. Drew Lock was trying to rush the ball into the end zone. He got stripped. The Cincinnati player picked it up, and Drew Lock, not Drew Lock, but I forgot the other Denver Broncos player, stripped the Bengals defender of the ball. The Broncos got it back, but for some reason the refs called it that in Cincinnati kept possession. I found that rule to be very weird. But outside of that, like you said, Denver just couldn't muster up anything consistently offensively. Their defense kept them in the game, which I thought one of the reasons why I thought Denver was going to pull out the upset. I chose Denver last Friday. They made me look silly. That was the only late game loss that I had. But You mentioned Cincinnati. As soon as they finish out the season strong, this is going to be the game they look back on and say this is the game that perhaps clinched the playoff spot. Especially what's going on in the rest of the division. We'll get to it in a minute.
Yeah, they got the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Browns. So they have a very tough schedule to finish up the season. So we'll see where they are. They hope they can keep it up now real quick. We don't have to do too much time on this. We got San Fran and Atlanta. They did what they're supposed to. The 49ers did. Both the Deebo Samuel both had a touchdown run and a touchdown catch from not he didn't have a catch from Garoppolo, but they did just enough to win this game. I mean, Atlanta just couldn't get anything going offensively. They did for a little bit, but they were just kind of, they didn't show too much in the second half. And look, I think Atlanta of San Francisco, I should say, they're starting to kind of get it going. They were a little half-a-taily with the ball. They fumbled the ball a few times. I think it was raining. No, it wasn't raining there, but it was just it was the ball was very slippery, so there were a lot of
Yeah, they had a kickoff turnover.
Yep.
Which led to Atlanta's first offensive possession, which they turned, which the 49ers defense turned them away on a goal line stand. And like you said, they had another turnover as well. But I'll just make this quick. Like, I did watch the majority of this game yesterday in its entirety. The 49ers went back to the 2019 model. Run the ball, play strong defense. Jimmy Garoppolo, this is the third week in a row. He has not had a turnover. George Kittle, their tight end, has some normal numbers, 6 catches for 93 yards, but the 49ers went back to the 2019 formula and they got it done against a mediocre Falcons team.
Did what they had to do and keep pace for them, make sure they clinched that playoff spot. One of the games of the week, I should say, Packers and Ravens. Packers held on. Tyler Huntley looked really good. 2 touchdowns, 215 passing yards. He only rushed for 73 yards. He was the team's leading rusher. Aaron Rodgers threw for 3 touchdowns, and he also broke Brett Favre's record for the most by a Packers quarterback. So he broke that record. That stood for I think like 20 years or something like that. And also too, AJ Dillon, the defense. So yes, I know they went for 2, but you know what? I didn't mind. This is actually one time I actually didn't mind it because.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't mind. I didn't mind them going for 2. I mean, okay, look. Aaron Rodgers would have had like 40-some seconds left or 42 seconds left. So yeah, you get play. This is the one time where you actually didn't mind them playing for the win. It just if they had a better, that OC for the Ravens need to go. I still say that, but they they did what they could. But the Raven, Tyler Huntley is a fine, so I would say keep him. And some people say, well, use him as a chip to get more picks. No, keep him as long as you keep him, because you're gonna, if Lamar gets hurt again or gets dinged up or gets sick or whatever, you're gonna need a guy who is very capable, and he's showing that he is very capable on the losing end. But the Packers are one step closer. They've already clinched the NFC North with that win. Now they could get the number 1 seed.
And that's one of the reasons why we all picked the Packers last Friday, referring to myself, Christine, and of course, Lakeena. We knew that the Baltimore Ravens would make it close, but their defense is not like it once was. But I would have put pressure on their defense to stop Aaron Rodgers, go for the tie, and then try to play for overtime. Put that pressure on their defense. The defense did not look great yesterday. I'm sure that's probably why John Harbaugh went for 2. But I still would have said defense, you got to have a stop. Yeah, that's what I would have done. But then again, that's just me.
Yeah. I mean, but I get why some people are a little rules about that. But it's this is the one time where I actually didn't mind them going for 2. It just didn't work. Now, real quick, Saints and Bucks. I mean, apparently, I guess the Saints somehow have their the Bucks' number. I think they're like 4-0 against 4 or 5-0 against Ray, because they the last shot that they had against Tom Brady was the last time they played. Well, the first time they played, I should say, was when he was, of course, playing with the Patriots. So just that they're Cam Hayward had his best has best out of see that he had a couple of sacks. He joins Ricky Jackson as the only player to have 100+ sacks with the Saints, so that's a pretty cool moment for him. So I mean, they just couldn't get anything going with the Bucks. I mean, I guess like Dennis Allen, who took over as the coach for the day since Sean Payton was out because he had with COVID protocols. But I guess this is a setback for the Bucks.
I did not see this coming, Lakeena. I did not expect the Saints to play that well defensively. We all know that they're a good defensive team, but did you see a shutout coming? I didn't. If anyone said that they did, you're lying. Okay. I know Tampa couldn't get anything going, especially in the running department. I know Leonard Fournette, who left the game with an injury, he's been hot for them the last couple of weeks. I know wide receiver Mike Evans left with an injury as well, along with their defensive star Levante David. He left with an injury. Brady. The way you pressure up Brady is with surprise blitzes and pressure him up the middle. The Saints did that last night. I know they didn't have anything to go with offensively. Taysom Hill, we know why he's not a starting quarterback in this league, but the Saints got away with it last night. That was a great game plan by Dennis Allen, who's their defensive coordinator, and like I said, active head coach last night. But it was a great game plan by the Saints. Will they make it to the playoffs? I'm not sure, but Tampa's got some issues, and it's going to be a challenge to see if they can get that number one spot, because I still believe they played Carolina twice out of the 3 weeks for the remainder of the schedule. They should be fine there, but if they don't get their key guys back healthy, they're going to have a tougher role unlike a year ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, of course, we'll preview the other games. The Vikings, Bears, and we have time. We'll play the games that were postponed. That were being made up for. So, but we'll get to all that later on. But first, we're going to preview more of Vikings Bears tonight with Tatum Everett, who is the Vikings reporter and pregame host. So she's joining us coming up next, along with Sydney Brown. I'm Lakeena McGee. This is Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we will see you in a bit.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
DeMar DeRozan with 9 on the clock, under a minute to go. DeMar, top side three, got it!
The action on the Bulls Radio Network, 115-110 over the Lakers on Sunday. Chicago back on the floor after having a pair of games postponed last week because of a COVID-19 outbreak. DeMar DeRozan with 38 points. He missed 2 weeks in the NBA's health and safety protocols. Nikola Vukovic with 19 points and 13 boards. Lonzo Ball added 19 points as the Bulls snapped the 2-game slide. It was Chicago's first game since December the 11th. NFL tonight, the Bears take on the Vikings. Chicago with 17 players and all 3 coordinators on the reserve COVID-19 list. Defensive back Jalen Johnson and safety Tashawn Gibson, the latest additions to the COVID list on Sunday. The Vikings are 6-7, Chicago 4-9. The Bears trying to snap a 2-game slide. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Fever is a potential sign of COVID or the flu, and the Exergen temporal scanner thermometer has been proven accurate with more than 100 clinical studies. Be vigilant and seek medical advice at the first sign of fever. Be accurate with Exergen. Exergen temporal scanners, available at Walmart and other fine retailers. Learn more at Exergen.com. That's EXERGEN.com. Exergen is changing the way the world takes temperature.
I'm Dr. Andrea Russo, a cardiologist. Maybe you're waiting to talk to your doctor right now. But if you're having an irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness, don't wait. This could be a serious condition like atrial fibrillation, which can make you about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. If you're having these symptoms, don't wait. Talk to a doctor by phone, online, or in person.
Brought to you by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in living color along with Miss Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
Follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
If you have a question or comment for us during our last hour of the show, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Tonight is Monday Night Football. We have 2 games, but the original game that is slated to take place tonight will take place on the lakefront at 7:15 p.m. on ABC and ESPN. Is between the Minnesota Vikings and our Chicago Bears. To help us preview that contest tonight, we're bringing in their ace reporter and producer for Vikings Entertainment Network. It's the one, the only, the lovely Miss Tatum Everett. Tatum, welcome to our show. How are you today?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm good. I'm ready for game day. I feel like we've had a very long week getting ready for this game after the Thursday night football win. So I'm just ready to see the Vikings back in action.
Speaking of the Vikings, that was the first question I was going to ask you about their 10-day layoff, because they haven't played in 10 days. Of course, they're coming off a victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here's the thing about Minnesota. I'm sure you may agree with me on this. I know you're very close to the team, but it seems like they play almost every game right down to the wire. And I know certain fans are saying that when is the team is going to put it together consistently. I know they are. I'm sure they're having their concerns about head coach Mike Zimmer. We'll get to that later, but talk to us about the Minnesota Vikings season so far. They're taking their fans through a heart attack performances, lack of a better term, of so far this season.
No, that's exactly how I describe it. It's been 12 one-possession games in the season so far. It's just been very much the Vikings seem to start out hot, give away a lead, and then have to scramble to contain there at the end of the game. And sometimes they fall short, and sometimes they get a big win like they did against the Steelers. So yeah, it's very much a team that seems to play to the level of their competition, whether you're facing, a Packers team who we beat earlier this season, or you fall to the winless Lions. So it's just been kind of an up and down season for the Vikings for sure.
Dalvin Cook, what's his status for? I know he looks like he's going to play tonight. How does he look health-wise? I mean, he actually looked really good against the Steelers. He, rushing for over 200 yards. I mean, that's just absurd that he's leading the league in rushing, or is right up there in rushing. So how does he look? Is he fully healthy? Is he still a little bit banged up? What's his status for tonight?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that. I talked to Dalvin on Tuesday, and he said that he is good to go. He was in some pain while he was playing, but that's kind of a minor thing. I think everyone at this point, as we are in the last few games of the season, is in pain while playing after such a long, drawn out year. But Dalvin's feeling good. He wore that shoulder harness last game where he rushed for and matched a career high 205 yards on the ground. And if they can stick to that this week, I think that'll be really key against the Bears tonight, who have, Akeem Hicks and Eddie Goldman out there. And honestly, after the COVID-19 list was released for Chicago, it's two of those studs on the defense that they're going to really need to step up in order to stop this Vikings team with their entire secondary out and on the COVID-19 list tonight.
And speaking of the Vikings offense, we all know in today's NFL, it starts with the quarterback. Of course, Kirk Cousins has 27 touchdowns on the season. Yeah, I know many people around the country are not talking about this, but he's actually having a better season, especially in terms of touchdowns to turnover ratio. But in his 6 career games against Chicago, since he's joined the Vikings, he's lost 5 of them. Do you expect that trend to continue tonight? Or, as you mentioned, with the Bears' depleted secondary, do you expect him and Justin Jefferson, their second-year wide receiver out of LSU, to go off tonight?
Yeah, I do expect a big game for Justin Jefferson, and that does come from Kirk Cousins. As long as the offensive line is able to give him enough time, I think that's been the key this season, is that a lot of these guys have stepped up at the line and given Kirk some time, and you can really correlate that between the games where he struggled and the games where he's been good. The offensive line, if they have any miscues, any penalties, anything like that, putting them in third and long situations, that's when this Vikings offense really struggles. But if they're efficient and they don't make mistakes and give Kirk Cousins time, this offense is one of the best in the league. And you just see that kind of Jekyll and Hyde nature a lot in this season. I expect a big performance out of them tonight, with all of the concerns on Chicago's defense as far as who's in and who's out. And it really doesn't help, I don't think at all, that Jalen Johnson's out of the game now, because, Justin Jefferson is a stud. He continues to be really great, and the Vikings will really rely on him if Adam Thielen is not able to play tonight. And that's still on the table. He was listed as questionable, but there really hasn't been any word. I figure that'll be like a game time decision whether or not Adam Thielen will be ready this week.
Well, let's talk about the defense for a second for the Vikings. I mean, they actually, Anthony Moore actually made a key stop in that last second, drive that would have, propelled the Steelers to that win over the Vikings on Thursday. You wonder, I'm sure Vikings fans were like, where was this, the week prior, before they lost to the Lions, but that's a whole nother thing. Pearson's back, from the COVID list. You got Harrison Smith, like I said, I mentioned Bard, also Eddie Kendricks. What can this defense do to kind of like, as they finish the season? They got a pretty tough schedule. They have the Rams after tonight's game.
Right.
Then they have the Packers, who they have beat. They did beat at home. They have to go to Lambeau, and also they finish up against the Bears. So what do you think the defense has to do to kind of try to like make sure Vikings can make that playoff push?
Yeah, I think it's just playing to their strengths at this point. They know who they are. They lead the league in sacks, so it's just continuing to get pressure on Fields and whatever quarterback moving forward, obviously. But I think the thing when the Lions lost was they were missing so many pieces. Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks didn't play. Patrick Peterson wasn't in the game. As long as they can keep their veterans healthy and in the game, it's going to make a big difference. I know Eric Kendricks had a practice this week where he did not participate, and people were very concerned. If he's not in the game, that's a very big loss for this Vikings defense. And so, you mentioned Michael Pierce and Dalvin Tomlinson there in the middle. They're going to really need to step up in order to counteract the Bears' rushing attack, not only with Justin Fields, with David Montgomery. The run defense hasn't been a strength for this unit this season. And so I think if they can step up big in this game, Mike Zimmer has a history of being able to scheme very well against rookie quarterbacks. And so I think this could be another game where we see the scheme of Mike Zimmer showing off maybe more so than the talent on the roster, because the secondary is pretty thin as well. I know we talked about the Bears secondary, but the Vikings secondary is a little thin as well, especially after waiving Bashad Breeland this week. And it hasn't been a strength of theirs either. And so, has to be a big game from Barr, Kendricks, Harrison Smith, Patrick Peterson, and Cam Dantzler, who will be starting more than likely on the opposite side from Patrick Peterson.
Minnesota Vikings team reporter Tatum Everett is joining us right here live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, Second City Sports. Sid Lakeena here with you. Tatum, you brought up my next question, of course, with Justin Fields. So who's going to be that spy for the Minnesota Vikings defense? Will it be Eric Kendricks or will it be somebody else? I think the pressure will be on Kendricks naturally because, as you mentioned before, when he missed the last couple of games, you could tell the Vikings defense wasn't the same. Now that he's back in there, I think he'll be the difference maker tonight, to at least not stopping Justin Fields, but at least containing him.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a big list of the job duties for EK. Anthony Barr is a great linebacker. They play very well together since they were college teammates as well. So he'll be wearing the green dot as long as he's good to go. And then Nick Vigil's a really great. A lot of times I'll put 3 linebackers in the game, and Nick Vigil's been a great option for this Vikings defense as well. So, to me, the linebackers are the strength of this defense. And so I do think that they'll be able to frustrate Justin Fields and get pressure on an offensive line that's allowed 33 sacks in Justin Fields' 9 starts. So that kind of plays into the Vikings strategy a little bit.
Tyler, how good has Tyler Conklin been this year? I know, he's been, ordered with the tags, so we're having to replace, Kyle Rudolph, who was a very popular player there. And, how much of a factor do you think he's going to be tonight?
Yeah, no, Tyler Conklin's always a big factor. He's really improved his run blocking, his pass blocking. But I think the biggest thing that we've realized about Tyler Conklin is that he can catch. He can make contested 50-50 ball catches. He's got that basketball player background, so he can get hops. He's got some jump to him. I think that he's stepped up really big this season because going into this year, it was Thielen and JJ, one of the best wide receiver duos in the league. And then you also had Irv Smith Jr., who is very much a talented pass catching tight end. And his talent is off the charts. You just saw glimmers of it as Kyle Rudolph, left this last season. It was Irv's time to shine. And then he suffers that season-ending injury in training camp. And so it's unfortunate to not see Irv Smith out there, but it's been great to see Tyler Conklin step up big this season.
Going back to the Vikings offense, Tatum, KJ Osborne, you mentioned the injury to Adam Thielen, who's missed the last few games. He's had some surprising moments this year. Of course, he had the game-winning touchdown against Carolina a couple of months ago. Talk to us about his impact with the Vikings receiving corps.
Well, it's funny because he didn't have an offensive snap last season, so nobody really knew what he was going to be able to do. And in training camp, he looked really good. You could tell that he had been working hard in the offseason to make sure that his number would get called. And as you said, he's made some very pivotal catches. He had the 62-yard touchdown as the Steelers were coming back into the game on Thursday. And that was a career long for him. He had the walk-off touchdown in Carolina. He's had some really big moments. And when you need him to step up, he can. And I just think it's just another weapon for Kirk Cousins to have in his arsenal.
Now, like I said before about their schedule, the remaining schedule, it's pretty tough. So how many games do you think they have to win? Do you think they have to win, all three? Can you just get away with just winning 2 or the last 3? What do you think? What do you think is the key going to be? What do you think is the ceiling for them?
Yeah, they only have maybe a 1 game. What's the word I'm looking for? And they really can only lose 1 game from here on out if they
mulligan
playoffs. I mean, that's obviously winning out is ideal, but you really can't fall short in 2 of the next 4. You're just not going to make it. I know with the Saints beating the Bucks last night and shutting out Tom Brady, that did not bode well for the Vikings playoff chances. We're still yet to see what goes on with that Washington-Philly game. A lot of eyes on how the Washington football team does as far as the Vikings playoff chances go. But, heading into this weekend, they had a 45% chance of making the playoffs, and it went down to 32 with a Saints win. It'll go back up to around 43%-ish when, if they were to get a win tonight against the Bears. So it's really still playing with fire at this point, but they put themselves in this position. And so from here on out, you have to play your best ball, and you have to get these wins over, twice over the Bears, Rams, and Packers, as you mentioned, in order to really control your own playoff destiny.
Give us the fan temperature, Tatum, of the Vikings fans. Of course, I brought up head coach Mike Zimmer earlier, but I know last year they struggled to start the season. They got back into the race. Of course, that Dalvin Cook had a death in the family along with injuries last year, so the Vikings fell short of the playoffs. This year, they're around 500 again. Do the fans think that Mike Zimmer should go if they fail to make the playoffs again this year?
I don't really have an answer for that. I don't really know what the fans think. I think it's a very divided situation, but at the end of the day, you have to just wait until it all plays out. I mean, there really isn't anything you can sit back and say, oh, the organization will do this, the organization will do that. There's really no feel in the building for that as far as I'm concerned. And so, I just going to kind of wait and see what happens. And hopefully Vikings, fans will be happy if they can win out and make it to the playoffs.
Which is probably the most important thing at this point. Now, Tatum, I see you're an LSU grad. Brian Kelly is now the head football coach there with him and his southern accent, even though he grew up in Boston, but that's a whole other story. Do you think he fits LSU's program, and what are your expectations for him as the head football coach?
I mean, he's a proven winner. And LSU likes winners. So I think as far as that goes, I think if he can win, he'll be just fine there. A lot of people making fun of the fact that he may not be a good fit down there. But, we had a good fit, and we had Ed Orgeron, and he was, the quintessential guy to have the job, and he won a national championship. But the drop off afterwards, I think, really left a bad taste in everyone's mouths. And there was a lot of stuff going on behind closed doors. And even stretching into the Les Miles era. I'm excited for the fact that there's a coach who approaches the game very businesslike, who may not be a character like a Les Miles or an Ed Orgeron. He has the Nick Saban kind of, this is a business plan, this is a business mentality. And so I do like that about Brian Kelly. I'm more of a wait and see, watch and see kind of person. I'm not going to make, an assumption or a first impression on someone alone. But Brian Kelly is the winningest coach that LSU's ever hired. And so the fact that the program was able to make a hire like that of that caliber is very promising. And as long as he can keep those Louisiana recruits in the state, I'm okay, because LSU, I mean, think about it. LSU, or Louisiana actually, has the most NFL players per capita than any state in the country. So it's a hotbed for, NFL talent. And Nick Saban knows that. He recruits a ton of Louisiana players away from LSU. So if Brian Kelly can keep some of those guys back in the state, I'll be a happy camper.
Yeah, considering the state of Texas and the state of Florida, those are hotbeds for football talent as well. So Louisiana, the state of Louisiana should be proud. Hopefully, like you said, they can get some of that talent back at LSU. We're joined by Vikings team reporter Tatum Everett right here on Sports Zone Chicago, Second City Sports. Sid, Lakeena are here with you. Tatum, let's get to some fun stuff now. but fun part of the interview. Going through your website over the weekend, I saw a clip of you on social media. You said that your number one sport is football. You grew up in the state of Louisiana. Where did that passion of sports come from?
Yeah, I mean, it honestly stems from my LSU fandom. As much as I love sports and followed a lot of teams growing up, LSU was it for me. And we grew up not around an MLB team or an NBA team. Really, we just had the Saints and LSU, and that was it. So that's kind of where it all came from. My parents are big LSU fans; they're LSU grads, and so I just kind of fell in love with it through my fandom for the Tigers.
Very cool. Now they do have a bowl game. I forgot the bowl game that they're gonna be playing, but yeah. So what are your expectations for them in this game? I know they're gonna be playing for Brian Kelly and his new coaching staff. So let's get your breakdown of this bowl.
Yeah, well, the interim head coach Brad Davis will be coaching and he's been retained, so that's good. I don't have any expectations. I really am just kind of ready to start the 2022 season. I want to see what Brian Kelly's able to do. If the guys get a win, good for them. Like, they deserve it after the, year that they've had. As for the players, I hope they're able to, get a win and feel good about what they've accomplished this season. It's been a crazy year down there. So for them, I really hope that they can get a victory. I mean, there really isn't a quarterback right now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird. I know there's been talk about having a receiver play quarterback. So, it could be a really interesting game. But, like I said, as long as, they get out with no really bad injuries and they just kind of are able to come together one last time, that'll be good enough for me.
I saw this clip on your social media page, Tatum, during the game last Thursday with the Vikings and Steelers. We talk about national brands and worldwide brands regarding football with the Dallas Cowboys, Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers, and the now Las Vegas Raiders. But the Minnesota Vikings organization, they're pretty much worldwide too. And I saw they have an official Twitter account, the Minnesota Vikings UK. You were interviewed by one of their reporters last Thursday. Talk to us about that experience. I know that had to be very cool.
Yeah, well, it's funny. The NFL just started awarding marketing rights for the world, the globe.
Yeah.
And each team made bids, or not each team, but teams made bids to be able to market their team to certain areas of the world. And the Vikings bid for the United Kingdom and for Canada. And we already had official accounts for, I think the United Kingdom, but our Canada accounts are new. And we're really excited to be able to maybe play games there, hold events for those fans. We call them our late night Vikes because they stay up late and they watch us late.
Yes.
Like 20 kickoffs kind of stuff. They'll be doing that tonight. Or 1:20 in the morning. And so, we're just really excited to be able to expand the brand and acknowledge all of our fans over, in England or the UK and up there in Canada, which really isn't that far. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. Now, it's sort of one of those things, like you said, for you're a Louisiana girl, growing up, football is a hotbed. So just an amazing sort of like, group of talent down there in Louisiana. Now, as for the Vikings, I don't think people realize what the rich history of the team. I mean, they have multiple, divisional championships and, have a couple of Super Bowl appearances, but they haven't won one yet. So, I think this team, do you think this team, the way it's constructed, can they make a playoff run? Because we've seen like weird things happen, wildcard teams come out of nowhere in some cases. So do you think this team's capable of doing that? Should they get into playoffs?
Yeah, I would never rule it out. We've seen weirder things happen before. And this team has a lot of fight. I'll say that about them. They really believe in themselves and they have a lot of grit and determination. And if they can just limit mistakes, limit lulls in the game, I think this team could be really good. They've shown a lot of great signs throughout the year. They really have. And that's what's so befuddling, I think, to a lot of fans and a lot of people in Minnesota is just you look at the team and you think like they have all the right pieces. It's just sometimes they're just laps. And so you just need it to all come together. And really, you only need it to come together at the right time. And now's the time. So as long as it comes together, you never know what can happen.
Heading down the home stretch with Vikings reporter Tatum Everett right here on Second City Sports, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena are here with you. Tatum, without telling my age, well, I'll tell my age. I'm 29. That's my last offer. But going through the 90s and the early 2000s, we didn't see that much of female sports reporters or anchors. We're starting to see a renaissance in there now. Now you started to see them in play-by-play roles full time. Is not just studio hosts or sideline reporting. And reading through your resume, you really worked your way up. Talk to us about who did you look up to as far as role models are concerned to get to where you are now?
Yeah, I looked up to anyone that I could watch on SportsCenter, Susie Kolber, Hannah Storm, Andrea Kramer, all those women that are out there who really just blaze the path for everyone. It's a fun job. And I think that that's why I was so attracted to it to begin with, is just to be able to talk about something like sports all day, every day. It's I don't want to say it's very serious for a lot of people, but it's not as serious as like if we need to talk about politics or the economy or anything like that. And that was just never my thing. So the fact that we can talk about sports, some of the best inspirational stories are from sports. I like all of that side of things. So that's kind of what got me into it. I'm really, really lucky to be working in the NFL, and I've loved being here. It's only been like 6 months or 7 months, but it's been awesome so far. Really sad that the season might be almost over. I mean, we've got a few more months of the NFL in general, and then it starts all over again. So yeah, I mean, I'm really thankful, and it just really goes to show, I think, to anyone out there who wants to get to a certain point in their career, whether it's in sports broadcasting or not, to just forge ahead, make the right connections, put in the hard work, and you never know what can happen.
Have you adjusted to the cold yet?
No.
Yeah.
Adjusted to cold. Whoever says that is lying to you. It's miserable. It's absolutely miserable.
Winter coats. That's a really good winter coat. That's a
yeah.
thing to
I got
invest
the
in.
coat. I got the boots. Got some socks for Christmas. About to buy some battery powered hand warmers. Didn't know that was a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Got the right car. I park underground. I'm trying to like do all the right things. So we'll see. I think I'll survive, but I'm not gonna like thrive.
Yeah. You're ahead of the game though, so that's good. Those battery power hand warmers, those are we know people who use it, so those are lifesavers. What advice would you give for a young female or male that wants to jump into this and cover the NFL or cover sports? What advice would you give them?
Don't say no to anything. Pursue any opportunity available to you. Nothing is too big or too small. You never know who you'll meet. You'll never know what you'll learn. And just being as versatile as possible. If you can find your niche, that's awesome, but it's also great to be good at a lot of different things. You never know what opportunity will present itself and what you'll use your skills for. And so that's probably the best piece of advice I could give is just get involved, put the work in, and never say no to something, because you never know what it'll lead to.
Great advice there. Last question from me, Tatum, before we let you go. Especially during last year, we were all stuck in our homes. Most of us watched old games, and some of us watched old TV shows. I'm still doing that right now via YouTube. I've been, without telling your age, I've been watching old Saturday morning TV shows, especially with the TNBC era back in the 90s with City Guys, and I'm currently watching the episodes of Hang Time. Did you have any Saturday morning TV rituals, or what was your favorite TV shows growing up?
Saturday morning rituals. That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I was a big Nickelodeon kid. I watched a lot.
So was I. Yeah. Double Dare was my favorite show.
Yeah. What was?
Double Dare.
Classic. That was
yes.
I love game shows, so I did love a good game show like Legends of the Hidden Temple or Guts.
That's mine. That's my favorite.
I watched all of that. Anything on Nickelodeon or like Disney Channel. Loved Disney Channel, but I was a big cartoon fan. Like I'd watch Looney Tunes too. So yeah, I mean, I kind of watched it all. I love TV. I think that's probably why I got into TV. I had no problem admitting it. I watch a lot of television. I love it. It's my escape. I don't care. So yeah, no, I'm with you. I like the Nickelodeon, Disney Channel kind of stuff, but I'm a big Disney fan too. So I probably watched a lot of like Disney movies.
Well, you kind of ran into my next question since, what TV show did you catch up on during the pandemic? Or do you have any current, favorites now?
Wow, what TV show didn't I catch up on during the pandemic? in all seriousness, though, and this is kind of totally not in like the NFL sports broadcaster realm, but I had heard so many good things about RuPaul's Drag Race that I watched every single season plus the All-Star seasons. And now I love it and I watch it in real time, but I watched I caught up on it all. I know, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I loved it. So that's what I like. I like RuPaul.
All right. Have you ever, before we let you go, Tim, I promise this is the last question. Have you ever traveled to Chicago before?
I have only been to Chicago once. I'm not going to the game today. I work at the facility doing the post-game live show. So I'm not there right now, but I've been to Chicago one time in high school. Gotta go. Obviously, we're really close to you guys. I ate Giordano's Pizza.
Solid.
Went to Navy Pier.
Good.
Walked on Michigan Avenue. And that's all I remember. I remember really loving the city, though. I know that sounds really strange, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on a show based out of Chicago, but I remember being there and coming home and telling my mom and dad, oh my God, I'm going to live there one day. I love Chicago. It was so cool. I don't know why. I just had a feeling about it. I really liked it. Probably because of pizza, but I just liked everything about it. And so, a big fan of the city for sure.
Yeah, you never know, especially the way this business is. You never know. You may work in this great city one day, so you never know. So as we say in Chicago, we have 4 great months out of the year. So as I tell people all the time that don't live here, come to Chicago during the summertime. It's the best city in the world. I'm not just saying that because I live here. I was born and raised here, but it's the greatest city in the world, especially during the summertime.
That's fair. Yeah. No, I've heard it's beautiful in the summer and it's, I love the river going through it. I love cities with water. Being from New Orleans is probably pretty obvious, but I just love it. And so, I'll have to come back during the summer for sure.
All right. That was Vikings reporter, Miss Tatum Everett. You can catch her on the Vikings Entertainment Network and on Vikings.com. Tatum, thank you very much for joining us today. Enjoy the game tonight. And where can people catch a Vikings post game live?
You can catch it on all the Vikings digital and social channels, whether that's Twitter or YouTube. It'll be live directly following the end of the game. And Robert Smith, former Vikings running back, is our analyst tonight. So we're excited to have him on board. He is so great, gives so much good insight. Really cares for the team. So if you're, a Vikings fan and you're watching right now, it's a really good show to watch right after the game to kind of decompress and really, get to hear from head coach Mike Zimmer and Robert Smith and things like that. So, but no, thank you guys so much for having me on and best of luck, I guess. We'll see. Tonight should be a fun one.
Yeah. Win or loss, I'll definitely be tuning in tonight. I'll send you some proof as well, I promise. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the game tonight and good luck the rest of the season.
Thank you. Same back.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Sam, and Merry Christmas.
You too.
All right. Once again, that was Miss Tatum Everett from Vikings Entertainment Network and Vikings.com. Make sure she said catch Minnesota Vikings post game live immediately following the game tonight on all their social media channels. Lakeena, that was fun. Let's wrap up today's show with some more fun topics as you're listening to Second City Sports Live and in living color. Sid Lakeena here with you right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Let's take a cool down break and let's finish up strong right after this.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
DeMar DeRozan with 9 on the clock, under a minute to go. DeMar, top side 3, got it!
The action on the Bulls Radio Network, 115-110 over the Lakers on Sunday. Chicago back on the floor after having a pair of games postponed last week because of a COVID-19 outbreak. DeMar DeRozan with 38 points. He missed 2 weeks in the NBA's health and safety protocols. Nikola Vucevic with 19 points and 13 boards. Lonzo Ball added 19 points as the Bulls snapped the 2-game slide. It was Chicago's first game since December the 11th. NFL tonight, the Bears take on the Vikings. Chicago with 17 13 players and all 3 coordinators on the reserve COVID-19 list. Defensive back Jalen Johnson and safety Tashawn Gibson, the latest additions to the COVID list on Sunday. The Vikings are 6-7, Chicago 4-9. The Bears trying to snap a 2-game slide. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Fever is a potential sign of COVID or the flu, and the Exergen temporal scanner thermometer has been proven accurate with more than 100 clinical studies. Be vigilant and seek medical advice at the first sign of fever. Be accurate with Exergen. Exergen temporal scanners, available at Walmart and other fine retailers. Learn more at Exergen.com. That's EXERGEN.com. Exergen is changing the way the world takes temperature.
I'm Dr. Andrea Russo, a cardiologist. Maybe you're waiting to talk to your doctor right now. But if you're having an irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness, don't wait. This could be a serious condition like atrial fibrillation, which can make you about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. If you're having these symptoms, don't wait. Talk to a doctor by phone, online, or in person.
Brought to you by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Welcome back to Second City Sports. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you. Last segment of the show. We'd like to thank Tatum Everett from the Vikings Entertainment Network and Vikings.com. Join us in our last segment previewing tonight's Vikings-Bears contest. As we said before, Lakeena, the game can be seen around the country on ESPN and simulcast on ABC tonight at 7:15 p.m. Central Standard Time. So for those of you that don't have cable, you can watch it on free TV tonight.
Also, too, it's also going to be on ESPN Plus as well. Unfortunately, no Manicast. That will be till the end of the season. Yeah. So, no more of no Manicast for the next few weeks until the end of the season. But yeah, it should be interesting ones tonight. Now, the game prior to that, the game that's being made up, of course, it was postponed. Raiders and Browns. That's also good. That's going to be prior to that. It's going to be on NFL Network. What are your quick sort of, breakdowns of this game, Sid?
Let's start with the off-the-field mess first. I know Raiders owner Mark Davis was upset because the team had to travel across country. They didn't have any major COVID issues, so he was upset that the Raiders couldn't play on Saturday. But Cleveland has COVID issues, which means that Nick Mullins, the third stringer, will get the start today. Of course, Baker Mayfield and Case Keenum, the original backup, both out due to COVID. Lakeena, I think Cleveland will win the game, but they'll have to depend on their defense, in particular Myles Garrett. I'll bring his name up again in a minute. We have another subject they would like to talk about regarding him. But the Cleveland, they have to lean on their defense, Myles Garrett, and lean on their running game with Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt. That's how the Cleveland's going to get this thing done. The Raiders, I know they don't play that well outside of their time zone. I don't think it's going to be that much of a difference because they had a couple of extra days to prepare for this game. But I think Cleveland has enough to get it done. It may come close to your pre-1980s football, 17-9, 13-10. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being that final score. But it's going to get ugly. But I think Cleveland still should have enough to win because Cleveland has a short week this week. After today's game, they're going to have to travel to Green Bay to play the Packers on Christmas Day, which is Saturday.
So that'll be interesting too. Of course, Kevin Stefanski will not be there, coaching, so that's going to be another thing. So it'll be interesting tonight. So if it gets a little ugly, folks, I think you should kind of excuse both teams for various reasons. Now tomorrow's games, there's going to be I guess a split doubleheader on Fox. You got Washington and Philly.
They'll be running at the same time.
Yep, and Seattle and the Rams. Now I don't know how they're going to do it. I know here in Illinois we're going to get the Washington Philly game, but apparently in Wisconsin they're getting Seattle and Los Angeles. So I don't know how the heck that's going to work, but how they're going to do it, how they're going to split it. But this was a missed opportunity by Fox to had like at 3 o'clock and at 6 o'clock. But again, that's a little too much, I guess, for them. But as Tatum said, a lot of playoff implications for that Washington Philly game. But both 6 and 7 Phillies coming off a bye, but Washington has a lot of COVID issues. I think like half their coaching staff is going to be out due to COVID. So I just saw on that came out about 10 minutes ago. So Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. But I already picked Philly, so it's gonna I think Philly should win this game.
Yeah, I picked Philadelphia as well. They should have a strong running game with Miles Sanders, and Jalen Hurts should be okay to play tomorrow. On the flip side for Washington, as I mentioned, at least if hopefully one of these quarterbacks could be off the COVID list by the time they kick off tomorrow night. Taylor Heineke and Kyle Allen. Right now, both of them are on the health and safety protocol list. So uh, Washington, even though they missing their star Chase Young due to a torn ACL, their defense has stepped up big time in the last 3 weeks, and give head coach Ron Rivera credit. But they need to run the ball with some consistency, in particular Antonio Gibson. He's their rock horse. I know he had a fumble last week. You know he didn't have the greatest stats, but Washington, they're going to have to play almost a near perfect game to pull off a slightly upset at Philadelphia. I know Philadelphia is still a young team, but they're a game away for going to 500. But it's going to take a miraculous effort, I believe, for Washington to win a big road game.
Now, as for as for the Seahawks Rams, again, I know the Seahawks been playing pretty well lately. They basically have to win outdoor to have even a shot at the playoffs. The Rams might have an outside shot at the number one seed should they win out. For me, I think this is going to be the key. I guess the good news is Jalen Ramsey and Darrell Henderson Jr. They're going to be off of COVID. They're off of COVID,
Mhm.
so they will be available tomorrow. So this should be a good game. But I think the Rams they got an opportunity to try to kind of like make a play for that one seed in NFC. So I think that's one of the reasons why I picked them to win this game tomorrow.
Yeah, I had the Rams as well. Of course, Odell Beckham Jr. is off the list. Thank goodness if you're the Rams. The Rams need to run the ball with some consistency. They got away with that last week against Arizona. Matthew Stafford played a heck of a game. Hopefully, he can continue that trend. That Seattle defense is a young but an inexperienced defense. I know they got veteran Bobby Wagner back there, but they're not good against the pass. And we know that Matthew Stafford, when he's on, he can spread that ball around. So I want to see how the Rams can establish that running game tomorrow night, because if they can, it's going to make their passing game that much more dangerous. On the defensive side for the Rams, Aaron Donald had a monster game on Monday Night Football last week with a couple of sacks. Can he chase around Russell Wilson and force a couple of turnovers? I want to see how the Rams defense can respond to Russell Wilson.
Yeah, that should be an interesting game there, as it usually is. You listen to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Cindy Brown. I'm Lakeena McGee. Bowl season's already started, Sid, in college football. Let's go to the college gridiron for a second. A tough loss for Northern Illinois. They lost to a close one to Coastal Carolina in the Tail Greeter Cure Bowl on Friday. They had their chance to win the game. They just couldn't do it. Coastal Carolina was able to put together a late drive to kind of propel them to that win. And but look, a great season for Northern. I mean, no one
Yes.
thought that they would win the MAC title. They did. They were picked to finish next to last, but a good season for the Huskies.
Yeah, congratulations to Coach Hammock and the rest of that staff for a great season. They're the only consistent team in the big time college football out of the state of Illinois. I know there was from what I understood, there was some clock management issues toward the end of that game. Maybe NIU would have pulled it off. Who knows? But hopefully this will establish a culture there, establish some consistency with that program. We talked about this, Lakeena, a few weeks ago. We talked about PJ Fleck, now the head coach of the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Or I remember that Northern Illinois had a couple of seasons of winning football, and people thought they should have at the time they had the I call it the BCS system, and people thought that Northern Illinois should have been playing in a major bowl game or perhaps a national championship. They were good, but they weren't at the top where Ohio State and the University of Miami were at that time. So hopefully that they could become better than Northwestern instead of having a good season here and there and then have a couple of bad seasons in a row. Hopefully they could become better than Northwestern, have some winning seasons, and get some unknown local talent to stay in the state instead of them leaving to go elsewhere.
Yeah, people forget Illinois is a pretty. I forgot to mention it, but Illinois is a pretty good hotbed too when it comes to college football, to high school football too, I should say. So the talent is there for a lot of them end up going to USC or Oklahoma or Texas or Alabama.
Yeah, and look at the local schools around here: University of Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, Notre Dame.
So they get to keep some of those, some of that talent here in state. I think that would help a lot. Middle Tennessee, beat Toledo in the Bahamas Bowl. West Kentucky hammers Appalachian State in a high-scoring game in the Boca Raton Bowl. the Celebration Bowl, which matches the champion of the MEAC versus the champion of the SWAC. South Carolina State got the best of the Fighting Deion Sanders and Jackson State, 31-10. They're the fifth MEAC team, I should say, to win that. So the Celebration Bowl is the fifth Black college national championship for the school, and their first since 2009. So that was just they just hammered Jackson State from start to finish. If you saw some of that game, yeah, go ahead, Sid. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Did you watch any of that game or some of it
I
or
did.
majority? Okay.
I
I watched some of it. Of course, I watched the halftime show. We'll get to that in a minute. The halftime show was just as long as the game. But even though, like I said, Jackson State didn't come out with their best ball. Shout out to South Carolina State. I think that the kids, I think Jason Palmer talked about this on Shauna Maya in the morning earlier today. The kids were, and we'll get to the other part of the story in just a moment, but the kids been patted on the back, and rightfully so, all season long, coming into the game with one loss. I know Deion Sanders' son is playing quarterback. He didn't have a great game. South Carolina State, I believe, had a great game plan, and they stuck to it and made Sanders' son mediocre at best. But I think the kids I'm sure they were nervous. They were happy that people have been patting them on the back. And it showed, especially in that first half. So still Deion Sanders and Jackson State, he's made a great impact with that program already. So congratulations to him. 11-2 to finish out the year. That's still a great job. But getting back to the other side of the story, Deion Sanders, we didn't talk about this on Friday. We have a couple minutes left to talk about it now. Deion Sanders picked up the number one recruit in the country. The player was supposed to play for Florida State, and Deion Sanders, a former Florida State player back in the day, picked up this kid. I don't have the name in front of me. He's going to start playing next year for Jackson State. We talked about this before, Lakeena, with this new NIL rule in the portal transfer rule. These young players, both women and men's college sports, if they're not getting any playing time and they're not satisfied with their situation, they can go up and get up out of there, go transfer to another program almost immediately. But I want to focus in on the HBCUs. Lakeena, we know before integration in the early 1970s, all of your black athletes, in particular football, were drafted out of HBCUs in the NFL from back in the day. Of course, we can give examples of Walter Payton, Jackie Slater, Mel Blount, Jerry Rice, Michael Strahan, of course, in the 90s with Texas Southern. But I think Deion Sanders could be the Jackie Robinson of this movement. Hopefully that the facilities, especially around HBCUs, will improve, because these colleges are just like the pros in football. It's all about the facilities as well. It's not just about the talent, but do you have the best facilities for them to help succeed? And I think we still a long ways from that. But what Deion Sanders did last week is just a stepping stone. I know it's things people want to see things happen overnight. It doesn't work that way, but I think this is the first step towards seeing positive change within HBCUs.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Hunter is the name of the wide receiver from Georgia. I think it was between Florida State. He early committed there, but then ended up flipping it and going to Jackson State. I think I think that's the NIL thing. I think that that played a factor. You can make money, wherever you go now. That's, I think one of the top women's recruits went to one of the smaller schools. So I think she was recruited by, I think, one of the top women's hoops programs, but I think she flipped over and went over to a smaller school. So it's closer to home. So yeah, I mean, look, you're going to be seeing this a lot. Now, as for the HBCU aspect of it, look, I mean, the guys you mentioned, also Aeneas Williams, Michael Strahan, among others. There have been guys that went to the Hall of Fame that came from HBCU. So this isn't a new thing. But again, will this lead to more, some more top recruits going to the HBCUs? Sure, maybe. I mean, especially with the NIL, they can still make money and the facilities and stuff. But Hampton ended up going to one of the left the MEAC to go to one of the mainstream conferences. I think I forgot there was another HBCU school that went to another conference. Because they feel like there are more opportunities there. So yeah, it's all going to change. It's all about money. And, it's just, look, I think, if you want to go to HBCU or you want to go to a quote mainstream school, fine, whatever. But, just do what makes you happy. Don't feel like you have to go just because you feel pressured to, go to where you want to go and where you're most comfortable. That's always been my thought of it. I know there was a young man that went to, what the hell was it? Oh, Howard, a basketball player went to Howard. That didn't turn out very well. So, it's one of those things where it could be good, but it could also not turn out well. So but then again, that's just the case with whatever the college you go to. So it is what it is. But it's good for him. Hopefully, he can make do, and let's see if Look, I mean, Deion as usual has been talking a lot of times, so he can walk the walk. So
Yeah,
we'll
and
see what he does.
let's be honest here. A couple more points before we move on to our next topic. Deion Sanders knows most of these kids. I know he hasn't been doing the NFL Network the last few years because he's been running camps, and he knows most of these guys because him along with the other former players are around around the college game, the high school game. They run these camps throughout the summer, so he knows that he can communicate through most of these kids and not to go away too much from the societal issues, but especially affecting us as Black Americans. 80% of our households are raised by single moms, and for Deion Sanders, to many, not all, but to many of those players, he's a father figure, so he could communicate to those kids in a way that other coaches cannot. Not saying other coaches are terrible, but he could communicate in a language that those young kids can understand.
That's another factor too. So like I said,
Yeah.
there are multiple factors. It depends on the player, the situation, and such. So I don't think we can't really like say anything about it. Say anything. What is this going to be the start of a trend? Maybe, but we'll just have to wait and see. And in the next few years. Now to finish up, the New Mexico Bowl. Fresno State beat UTEP. UAB upsets 28 by BYU in the Independence Bowl. The Linden Tree Bowl, Liberty just hammered Eastern Michigan, and their quarterback, Malik Willis, is the second QB ever over the last 5 years to have 3 touchdown passes and 2 rushing touchdowns in a bowl game, joining Zach Wilson, who did it a couple of years ago. So when he was still at BYU, ironically. Utah State beat Oregon State in the inaugural Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. Yeah, I didn't know that was a bowl game. Folks, don't feel bad. That's the first year of this bowl game. Also, too, Louisiana beat Marshall in the New Orleans Bowl. So, those are your bowl recaps so far. Yeah, it's a busy bowl season coming up. So make sure to check out some of the games. You're not going to check out the big ones just yet. You still got a couple weeks for those. But, it's nice, bowl season coming up. So it's always fun to see these two teams. And, of course, with guys, pulling out, the Seesaws in the top. We mentioned it on Friday the last couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting to see how these bowl games finish up.
Wrapping up the college football discussion, Lakeena, assuming that the Bears will move to Arlington Heights, which I think it will happen, once that stadium goes, do you think we'll get a bowl game?
Well, I mean, if it's going to be indoors, or maybe if it's how the facility looks, maybe I think that's probably one of the reasons why they want to do it too, is because perhaps maybe get a bowl game. Because I know Wrigley Field did it for for a couple of years, so maybe it's gonna be another reason. There might be another reason why.
Because you could also get the Big Ten championship game, the football championship game in there. We alternate between the United Center and it's not Casico Fieldhouse anymore. I forgot what the hell it's called now. In Indianapolis, where the Pacers play for the Big Ten title. I know New York City's in there too. Before people yelling at me at Madison Square Garden, they alternate between those 3 cities. But you could alternate between Lucas Oil Stadium and that new stadium is going to go off Arlington Heights for the Big Ten football championship. You get that Chicago money for sure.
Yeah. So so I think that's probably another reason why they want to do it. So again, still a long ways to go before any of that happens. So, but we'll see how it goes. New data body. This is SEC Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sydney Brown, all the Keenan McGee. We're wrapping things up here in these next about maybe 8 or 9 minutes as we finish up here. Going back to the game, that Vegas Cleveland game, just come across the wires. Both Baker Mayfield and Case Keenum don't clear the COVID list, so they will not be playing tonight. So you will be seeing a lot of running the ball, and also too, the defense is going to have to be a big factor here for this game.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, Cleveland's defense will also have to carry the weight too, because you mentioned the quarterback situation for the Browns. So, like I said, I expected a lot of ugliness between these two teams, especially the start of the game. But I think Cleveland can pull through and win this one. And I said, bring up this guy's name from Cleveland, Myles Garrett. Now he's having a phenomenal season. He may win the NFL Defensive Player of the Year award. I know there's a rookie defensive end out of Penn State named Micah Parsons, who's playing for the Dallas Cowboys, and he's having a phenomenal year. I think he's easily going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, but should he win the Defensive Player of the Year overall? But my main question is, as we talk about now, the NFL MVP. I know many people have Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers both as the top two guys. But you had to consider running back Jonathan Taylor of Indianapolis, and I think you should throw in there Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
think for Jonathan Taylor and Myles Garrett, if both those teams can perhaps finish the season strong and both teams make the playoffs, both of them should be stronger contenders for NFL MVP. Now,
Yeah.
as far as the running back, a running back hasn't won MVP since 2012, Adrian Peterson with the Vikings. But well, you can look this up for me real quickly. When's the last time the defensive player, if ever, won the NFL MVP?
Hold on, it's been a while. Let
Because
me
I was
look that up real
thinking about
quick.
that when I was thinking about Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett in particular.
Let me see here. Let me see.
Coming across the wires, Buccaneers wide receiver Chris Godwin will be out the rest of the season due to a torn ACL that he suffered last night in a 9-0 loss to the New Orleans Saints. So Chris Godwin, once again, will be out for the season due to a torn ACL. So Tom Brady will have one less weapon to depend on heading down the stretch for the regular season and as they prepare for the playoffs.
That's a big loss for that offense, and you saw how they struggled yesterday. So it's gonna be tough for them. Yeah, it's been since '86 when Lawrence Taylor won. So it's only happened twice. Alan Page won in '71, just 50 years prior to that. So it's been a while. Or I should say a long time since a defensive player has won NFL MVP. So will we see that again this year? We'll see. I mean, look, Aaron Donald's probably going to say, hey, what about me? I mean, I should be up there too. So, we've seen him play very well the last few weeks. So again, well, he was right there for a couple of years ago. So, before, I guess he didn't play very well those last few weeks. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But like I said, I mean, should they be, considered, Garrett and Diggs, but again, I don't know how they feel about defensive guys. I don't know, but because it's not the glamour position, but
right, because we all know it's an offensive award.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. Now, going to the college hoops for a second, not much has happened. The only thing that's happened is that games have been postponed or canceled due to COVID. I know that Kentucky and Louisville was supposed to have played, I think, tomorrow, but they got postponed due to COVID issues, I believe, with Louisville. And Loyola of Illinois. I mean, just as I was boasting about the fact that they didn't have to worry about it. Just as soon as we go off, they go on pause because of COVID protocol.
This sounds worse than last year, when there were no vaccines.
Right. Yeah. And
crazy.
I know Ohio State are having issues there, so they had to cancel, I should say, one of their games. DePaul. Now this is interesting. DePaul actually had to forfeit their game against Creighton. They were supposed to play tonight. But because COVID issues with DePaul, the way the Big East is doing it, not how I do it, but that counts as a win for Creighton, as a loss for DePaul. Same thing with Seton Hall; they're having COVID issues. They were supposed to play St. John's, so that's a win for St. John's and a loss to Seton Hall. Don't shoot the messenger, folks. For all you fans of the teams, this is how they're doing in the Big East. I know other conferences are a little bit, lighter, when it comes to that. And postponements and such, but yeah, and I know that Northwestern, I think they play Illinois Springfield because they were supposed to play DePaul on Saturday, but of course the issue with DePaul, so this was an add-on game for them. They played tonight at 6:00. But yeah, it seems like it's kind of going to happen in the college schedule, Sid.
Yeah, like I said, it reminds me just of a year ago when the vaccines were starting to come out, and of course we know what happened with college football last year. Of course, it flipped this year. It's just I don't think it's going to be as bad. I know it looks bleak right now, but I think after this holiday break, I think college basketball will get back to normal. We assume that all the players and the coaches are vaccinated. As we said before, we're not doctors, but vaccines are not a cure. It just lessens the symptoms to get worse if you happen to catch it. So, it's a rough time right now, especially in the sports world, period. But we'll get through this. It's not as bad as people thought it was going to be, but we'll get through this.
Yeah. Also, to the NHL. The NHL, I mean, I think Montreal, they're paused. I think I saw the Predators are also on pause, and the Blue Jackets are also on pause. So I think a few other teams. I know the Blackhawks have had a couple games coming up, but they've been pushed back. So, looks like it's kind of wreaking havoc in the NHL too. It seems like teams are getting kind of worse over there.
Yeah, as we talked about on Friday, and shout out to our colleague Jason Palmer. Catch him on What's Up Cubs tonight at 6 p.m. right here on Sports Zone Chicago. He mentioned this on Sean and Maya on Friday, and we kind of talked about it on Friday too. The NHL usually has Christmas break anyway, December 24th through the 27th. Anyway, they've been doing it the last several years. And we talked about the attendance restrictions in Canada. But if these Canadian teams don't start playing around this time next week, it could really get ugly.
Yeah, that's something to look out for too. Like I said before, I mean, it's like I said, I don't think they're gonna have a total shutdown. I know they were mulling over that decision, but I don't think it's gonna happen because they lost a lot. Like the other leagues, they lost a lot of money, so they really
Exactly.
need this to, especially with the new TV deal they got with ESPN and Turner. So that's they really don't have a choice at this point but to keep these games going.
And the Olympics are up in the air as
Yeah,
far as NHL players
now,
going.
yeah. So that's a lot to figure out for the NHL and for hockey. So gonna be very interesting. So what else is on your mind, say, before we wrap up here?
Last comment from me. Congratulations to Golden State Warriors head coach Steve Kerr. He'll be the new head basketball coach for Team USA men's basketball. So congratulations to him on that. I know you mentioned Grant Hill's the new head man in charge as far as picking talent. So that's a great combination heading up USA basketball going into this new era.
Yeah, also too, of course, Monty Williams, Eric Spoelstra, also Mark Few will round up the coaching staff as well. So that's a pretty good staff.
Yes.
So that's, hopefully they can get guys to start getting guys once everything kind of clears. They can get guys together to, get committed for the World Championships, also too for the Olympics in Paris in a couple of years.
Yeah. So congratulations once again to Steve Kerr for taking the new gig as USA men's head basketball coach. And Lakeena, real quick, less than a minute. How will you be watching tonight's Bears game? Will you be watching with apathy? Or are you watching as an analyst, or are you going to use it as a nap?
Well, it's late, so I don't think a late nap, that'd be a little bit late. But yeah, if our guys, Matt Peck and Big Dave Watson, do a hot mic, I think that'll probably be more entertaining than the game itself.
I didn't know that. I'll probably be tuning in.
No. I don't think they haven't announced it yet that they will do that.
If they do,
if they do, yeah, I'll be watching it through that.
They'll be the perfect replacement for the Manning cast.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it is. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like over it at this point. I just want the season to be over with. I think a lot of Bears fans kind of feel the same way. So, look, if Whatchcall starts swearing, then I think we might be onto something here. But especially with with Jalen Johnson, who's probably one of their top secondary guys, is out. So Justin Jefferson might have a field day today. So again, we'll see. But it's not supposed to be that cold tonight. But hey, look, I'm just gonna be here just to I'll just keep it on the background like I usually do with some of the Bears games in recent weeks. What about you?
Yeah, same here. Of course, I'll tune into our good friend, now official friend of the show, Tatum Everett, for Vikings post game live on all social media, including here on YouTube, following the game. If the Bears win, okay, but I know our buddy Christine Manica picked the Bears to win on Friday. Well, I'd be shot probably for 2 seconds, yeah, but the intelligence side of my brain says, okay.
Yeah, fine.
Okay.
I know, right? I mean, it's gonna be interesting. Like I said, some of these basketball games, the Suns and Lakers. That's another game I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. A couple of other games too. So yeah, I'll have, and I might watch a couple of the bowl games too. Even though, like I said before, next week's when it really starts to get going. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to this week. Not the Bears Vikings game. No. You follow me at Keena on that. No, you follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Cindy Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Make sure you listen to Second City Sports live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago every Monday and every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Slight schedule change, which I'll tell you about in just a second. Right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you. Sports Zone Chicago, the app. Make sure you download the app. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you follow the podcast version of this program, Second City Sports, at War on Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in those search engine boxes on those podcast platforms, WARR on Anchor. You can follow the guys at War Media at WAR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much in advance for your support
like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And as the kids would say, one more again, we'd like to thank Tatum Everett from the Vikings Entertainment Network and Vikings.com. Make sure you follow her on all social media platforms, and make sure you tune into Vikings post game tonight on all social media channels from the Minnesota Vikings. Yours surely will be watching whether the Bears win or lose.
All right, so I know you guys are getting your last minute Christmas shopping done, but even still, for Sid, I'm Lakeena. This has been Second City Sports, and we will see you Wednesday because we're going to be doing a special Wednesday show pre-Christmas.
Yes.
Our pre-Christmas extravaganza. We'll have our picks. Hopefully, we can get somebody on to talk about maybe college football or college hoops, or maybe even the Bears game coming up on Sunday. So so we'll be back Wednesday, and be good to each other and just be safe out there, folks. If you're not going to get the vaccine, make sure you wash your hands and wear your mask. This has been Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you, remember, Wednesday.
Bears, holla!